Mm. Thank you, Anyeith, and I'm so excited to have you here. And Anyeith is it's an honor and privilege to have you here. And Anyeith is has been a human rights lawyer for the United Nations, and also has been a spearhead of many foundations, including for the well-being of women and the resolution of sexual violence, and also in these many projects to assist the women, and one of them being Roots, the project of Roots, and assisting women in finding another way to care for themselves amongst all that is happening. So I welcome you, Anyeith, and I thank you deeply from my heart. I'm so happy you've joined us tonight. And I usually begin with this question because it's called Real Medicine Talks. And I think we spoke a little bit about this just before coming in, but what does real medicine mean to you? What is real medicine?
For me, real medicine is healing. It's transforming. Real medicine is peace, and it's just alignment, being in, everything in balance, and just nature for me is real medicine. Community is also one of the biggest medicines for me.
Yeah.
Because of just being in community, loving community. My house, my family is like a community. I talk about cousins and aunties and cousins and aunties, and it's always different ones because I have so many, and they all impact me, in different ways, in special ways. So I believe that real medicine is life, right? Enjoying life, enjoying each other, learning from each other, and growing.
So powerful. Thank you. Well, we were talking about community as medicine, really, and I was thinking about the ancestors and how the ancestors are always with us. And I know my ancestors are always talking to me. Like they are just pretty constantly talking with me about everything. But what I also know is that that for us, for them, we're the ones they've been waiting for. We are the ones they've been waiting for. And there's this it's a Celtic saying, ancient saying from the ancestors, and it's the ancestors are asking us, and they're saying, will you be the ones to break the negative ancestral patterns? Will you be the ones to bring forward what is good, true, and beautiful? Will you be the ones? And so there's a poem by Leticia Nieto that reminds me of this. Could I read that?
Please.
And it is from her book Beyond Inclusion, Beyond Empowerment, by her and a group of authors, and Margot F. Boyer, A Developmental Strategy to Liberate Everyone. And it has her poetry in it, and I just love her poetry. And it says, we have led the all-knowing processions. It is necessary now to murmur, we are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones. So groan the groans faint with sentiment. At the edge of the towns, we are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones. No turning pale in the face of parched music. It tastes good to listen. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones. Leticia Nieto, we are the ones.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do feel like something is happening, um, and we need to answer this call because there are patterns that have been going on for too long that we need to break. Um, I come from a country that's in conflict all the time. Uh, my great grandfather died in war in a community violence. My grandfather participated in a lot of peace building. He ran away from home at 13 years old, and for him, it was always about bringing communities together, people together. So I really believe that he was also trying to heal his community at that time, joining people from different places. My father was also a diplomat. He grew up, and became a diplomat, and and he really taught me a lot about actually looking at people and seeing the humanity no matter what, never losing sight of that, like never losing sight no matter what happens. And we're, talking about conflict and violence and the things that happen in conflict. And, and it's hard to keep that humanity, but it's that important to keep it and to look deeper and deeper into the actions of people, into the drivers of conflict, and into the crying. Their souls are crying because it's not easy to revert to violence, even though it seems so. I really believe that, you lose a bit of yourself, or you lose a lot of yourself, and you keep going. So I've always been, inspired by what change can, the call for being the ones that can break the patterns in the communities that they live in. And our world currently needs it. It really needs it. So, just this exploration. Um, and it's been like this kind of openness just around and to really think. I think I mentioned to you last time that we spoke, but I really feel like every time I come across somebody I completely disagree with, they are my biggest teachers. They will be my biggest teachers, because once I truly understand what it is that they're saying, at the heart of it, there is something pure and there's something good and there's something true. Um, it just gets all murked up with, with all the baggage, all the pain, all the suffering, all the anger, all the hate. So it looks ugly, but at the core, that we need to set free. Um, so I'm kind of like playing with that.
You said at the core, and then what did you say after that? It broke up.
Oh, I said at the core, there's something pure and something true and something good that needs to come out.
Oh, yeah.
And I really believe that, I've been an activist for a long time, or I actually call myself a recovering activist.
Oh my gosh.
Because it can also be a trap. It can also be a trap of self-righteousness, of feeling more superior. It always does that, even if you may be in the right. And so it's just this thing about the right and the wrong. So with my activism, it took me to many places. I started off just simple issue: Sudan, North, South, discrimination, oppression, just violence. And it was easy. I'm from the South as well. So I said, yeah, we're fighting for peace. But I have very many connections with the North as well. So on a personal level, I'm seeing just human beings, humanity, you know, peace and love and all of that. And then on the other side, you have the conflict that's happening, and you have the message.
Mm.
They're oppressing us, and they're pushing us down, and they're keeping us down. So all of these, kind of plays in um, in just creating this image of what the situation really is. And I went through a lot because, you know, the war ended. The Sudan broke in two.
Mhm.
We got what we wanted,
Mm.
but 2 years later, we fought ourselves.
Mm.
We fought ourselves in a more brutal way, in a more unforgiving way, in a more angry way. So, so that's really got me thinking a lot about what is it? What is it?
Mm. Mm.
Um, and so within South Sudan as well, I just started to really question myself, like, what am I? What do I want? What do you want? So when you're an activist. What do you want? You know, do you want to fight and be right? Or do you want to fight and make change?
Yeah.
To make change, you also have to humanize in the process. The process has to be humanizing, and the process has to be open to all and being able to listen to both, um, to all sides.
Yeah. To listen to.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, when we think about mending, separation, I know that um, it's so interesting to think about all the great myths. Like all these great myths have these, you know, I believe in all cultures there are myths of terrible separation. Just like a sense of deep loss and separation. And I know I'm thinking specifically of a myth, a story, a myth. My mother told me about called Stone Boy, and it's a Lakota story about um, a boy who loses his uncles, and all that he goes through. I mean, he goes to so many different people, and then he goes to even to the Eagle Nations, and he visits so many different people until finally, at last, he finds his way to someone who knows a little something, just a little something. And then he finally finds his way to someone else who knows just a little something, just a little something. And then he continues his journey until the very first sweat lodge is made, because he decides his longing, his yearning to see his uncles again is so great that he's willing to do whatever it takes to find them. And of course, then the sweat lodge is built, and then the stone boy, resuscitates as they had been dismembered, and they were remembered again in the lodge and through the prayers of the people that were in the lodge. And so, I mean, I think about different things. I think about the divine. I think about a connection with the creator. I think about how, it's that dismembering of ourselves, that dismembering of each other. It's that kind of picking apart that we do even in our own minds, I think. And yet, you know, and so, you know, how do we remember? I think is just something important for us all to think about right now. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So one of my other projects that I do is called Remembering the Ones We Lost. Um, it's basically an online memorial
Oh, yes.
because we have decades of loss. I mean, hundreds of years probably, but we are counting from 1955
Wow.
because our conflicts. So the last one that broke out in 2013, which is still ongoing, we're working on the piece at the moment. It it was triggered by things that happened in the past, or sort of like how it exploded. Um, it was triggered by things that happened in the past.
Oh, interesting.
And, you know, so one group would mention, we want to prevent a, um, a repeat of 1991. And then another group would be like, well, we want to prevent the repeat of 1987. And so it kind of went like that. And for me and my other colleagues in civil society, we thought this is terrible, and it's true. People are dealing with pain that they're still carrying from decades ago. People sit and talk about um, events that are not really acknowledged that happened, in the 60s and the 50s, and so really lack of acknowledgement and just the time it takes, that we are injured as a nation, and we need to heal as a nation, and we need to mourn as a nation as well, um, and to remember as a nation. So what was also happening is one community would focus on their own losses and then lament and just get more and more angry
Mm,
about another community because they had no idea, a community that they perceived was the reason or the cause of their losses. And so each community is holding on to this list of people who have died in different periods of time, but it's all related and we're all unaware of it. So, the point of putting it online is for it to be accessible to people and also for people to be able to put the names up themselves because there's no way that I can know or anybody else can know because of this very long war. And it's been a painful process. It's been a good process, but a painful process of, you know, putting names down of people dying from violence right now, as well as from the past, you know?
um,
So um, my colleagues, we've documented over 13,000 names,
wow.
a drop in the ocean. But it was hard work. It's also been hard work. So these are the things but we need to do it. Like it's this painful process, especially when you know, I put my cousin's name on there.
Mm,
It was hard. I took 2 years off the project after that. I have memories of whole families, list of the whole family, parent, father, kids, and it's really heartbreaking. But the importance of that is for all of us to be able to see it and just to realize the suffering that everyone has endured one way or another, or at least to have the assumption that you're not the only one. And to find that sort of like connection with others. We suffer together. We're in this country together. We're in this world together, and we also can do that. And then just to kind of, develop some sort of acceptance around it or some ceremony, some sort of like memorial, some sort of, time to process, to read the names, you know, for them, for our ancestors. We have to change. We have to do something. Um, and that was the most heartbreaking thing actually in this last year or two, is seeing a lot of our elders dying, um, but and for them having spent their whole life fighting for peace and self-determination and justice while they're not seeing it. um, this was the biggest heartbreak. This
mm,
was the biggest heartbreak when I lost my dad last year, and many uncles, and aunties. Just this period of time, it's been a lot of loss, and I've really started again to, yeah, we're in a relay, right? One generation to the other, but we must change. We must change. We must move from one to the other. We can't, so the race must be different.
Powerful. That's powerful, Anyeith. Yeah.
And from my dad, he was a very he was a gifted spoke calmly and clearly and just perceptive. He was very perceptive, um, and loved the whole country. I'm talking about not just South Sudan, but the whole Sudan. And I love that. I love the whole Sudan. I want the whole Sudan. But at the same time, and the whole continent, and then the whole world, like we are one. Like our countries are just political entities. You know, for most part, they're not really making sense. But it is, we're moving in different, we're moving from one to the other until we figure out what works. So it's kind of also not holding on to the way things are, because there is no such thing, and we're not done. As we can see in the world, everything is big question marks.
Big.
Um, you know, huge. And my dad, before he passed, like he was watching, he would watch a lot of news and things like that, and just shake his head over the state of global diplomacy. And it's the same. Like, from things have progressed so much, everything is up in the air, and we need to have that openness to be able to understand really what we can do next, and to be open, to be just open to the changes, and not to hold on so tight to these ways that are proving unable to to bring peace to this world, you know? So we need to remember so that we can carry it forth, you know? We need to remember so we can carry it forth, so we can bring all these memories, so we can honor, because to repeat is just it is a dishonor for the people who've gone back, who've passed on, and who lived difficult lives and suffered through many things. Connection for me is really, really important. Our ancestors to our future, that connection must be there, and it is there. And yeah.
And I love Anya, that image of the baton, just like I can even see like my ancestors handing the baton, like my mother. And she would always say, like, honey, I want you to do better than I did. I want you to do better than I did. I want you to, have a better experience. But, and one of the things that, that she'll say is I can't even believe that you came out of my body. Like, I can't, she's just like, I'm so proud of you, you know? And so, which is just, a wonderful, everyone wants to hear that from, a parent, but that she knows that she wants me to do better, and to have a different experience than her experience. And, you know, I think that that's what our ancestors really want, is they want us to improve on what they've done, you know.
Yeah.
So then that brings us to the question of, how can we, have these conversations of reconciliation and truth, love and truth with one another. And I think I loved what you said about, I mean, of course, I didn't love what you said about it, but I loved what you said about the pain. Like, Rumi said, the cure for the pain is in the pain, and it's just, I just feel that so strongly when you speak of it, that it's like the cure is in that. And, and in that moving into the loss and the grief. Before, when we were talking, we both were like, "Oh, look!" Oh, and I love this. This was, you gifted this book to me, and I love it so much. And did you want to share what you had?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Mm.
A book by Krido Mutwa, a Sanusi from South Africa. And I just love it. Like this book really, really, it was really healing. You know, it was really like a way to connect with ancestors, you know, our ancestors in a different way, in a way that um, I'm not used to. So this is African mythology, and it was really an eye opener. And I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And so here is just a little passage from the first chapter that I read. And it's called, no, it's not from the right. Anyway, I'm just going to read it. Okay. It is said that more than 1,010 times years went by in which there was peace on this virgin earth, peace in the sky, peace on the forest-veiled plains, on the scented valleys and timeless hills. Only certain beasts were permitted to kill by the laws of the Great Spirit in accordance with their victual needs. There was none of this savage and wanton destruction of life, such as men today indulge in, to gratify their warped and evil souls. Man against man forged no evil spear with secret or murderous intent. There was no such thing as anger and hate, no contention and rivalry. Man breathed peace on the cheek of his brother men. Man walked in peace without fear of wild beasts, which in turn had no reason to fear him. Suffer from our emotional curses. They knew no worry like our sin-laden selves. Death they welcomed with open arms and a smile on the face because, unlike our degenerate selves, they knew death for what it was, life's ultimate friend. I'm just going to read a tiny little bit more. But the evil star of self-righteousness was emerging from yonder horizon, and man's undoing was nigh. So then ... I just want to go to a point where these the first evil spirit, basically, in an ancient time with two-headed birds called the Kaul. Birds inflicted a great deal of damage, tearing and ripping the talons and with talons and beaks. But the poisonous sting of these metal things caused havoc amongst the attackers. To earth, followed to be sucked of their blood, and as fast as these metal things nourished themselves, they produced more and more of their metal kind. For each one destroyed by the holy birds, 1,000 took its place, and thus birds were soon heavily defeated, and the remnants, all is lost, cried one as it flew away in the sunset. Woe to mankind, woe to the world. And so this, you know, I may have ended quite negatively, but for me, it really raises a couple of things, you know. Probably all the things that are wrong with the world, right? That we look at each other. That we look at each other with suspicion first, right? And that we have no trust. We have no trust, right? So it's like all of, you know, this new world of fake media and fake news and conspiracy theories and things like that. You know, I mean, my caution, because I, you know, in the conflict in South we were, many things were said about us. Many things were said about us. Sorry?
You broke up a little bit there, love.
Oh, sorry.
So if you wanted to start from in the conflict.
So in the conflict, we had, you know, we were activists. We were advocating for peace. We're advocating for the inclusion of different groups to the peace agreement. And a lot of things were said about us, that we were not South Sudanese, that we were being funded by, different entities and all of, things like that. And so, you get to witness just how fake news gets, created. Um, but it's beyond that. It's more actually murking everything, right? It's provoking people to not trust. It's provoking people to to trust no one, and distrust everything, you know. And that's a very hard environment to work with. So I always try to trust. I always try to trust. This is my activism right here. So, I believe you. I believe you. I trust you. Um, and of course, there's a lot of things also helping me to know how far to go with that trust and all of that. But I trust because I know what a world or environment of distrust can do. It does nothing. It destroys and destroys and destroys. We need each other, right? Um, And so trust and just looking at each other with just acceptance and love, and treating animals with respect, not just killing for fun. Like, what is that still, so just things like that. This is what really kind of brings it up to me. It's like, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And it doesn't serve us well. We're not doing this and it doesn't serve us well. So, and the last part of it really shows me is, the saying of, violence begets violence. And that's what I witnessed in the second conflict in South Sudan. Everybody is right. Everybody is right to fight in the way that they are, in the anger and and the frustration. But to what end? To what end? So, so that feeling again, that pain can be the message, can be your messenger as to at peace. You're not happy, right? You're disturbed. And so rather than acting on it, because that's where the multiplication happens, you know where you kill and it multiplies, it just causes the pain and destruction to just keep on going in this, endless wave, and just this ripple effect, you know and of course it can happen the other way, as well. It's just the destructive way is so fast. It's so fast and so, you know um effortless.
Well, and it seems like it's so easy, I think, to see what is missing, like when something is removed or taken, whereas when we have gains of love or happiness or well-being, it's not always, you don't see it, because it's not missing. And I think sometimes what's missing has more power than what's present, and so, how can we address what is missing? and 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 come to a place where this is what we need to do, or this is what we need to have in place for our descendants, because this cannot be missing for our descendants, and we don't want even our very descendants to be, missing, and many of them are. you know um, and that's the horror of the pain, is that, our cherished ones go missing. you know
Yeah.
and so I believe, and it's interesting too, and yet in this time that we're in, that that we need community more than ever, that we need connection more than ever, that we need conversations of love and truth. And here we are. It's so fascinating. And this, I would love to be in Mozambique right now. I'm so close.
I would love to be here.
I would love it. Yes, I mean, even just seeing it earlier and just seeing, where we stayed, and how it's expanding and unfolding, and it's so glorious. And but what just came to my mind, Anya, is
Hmm.
the whales.
Yeah.
The whales, like,
Yeah.
how
Wonder if
magnificent.
we could play some of the videos. That would be great.
Oh, that
You
would be
know,
beautiful.
yeah.
That would be
Um,
beautiful.
like just sitting still and watching nature, the whales, it's like, you know, watching the birds, watching whales, watching dolphins, watching all of these things. It's like they're just going,
Mhm.
they're going, being together, taking care of each other, and just going in a very peaceful way, you know,
Mm.
In a very peaceful way.
same for us, for me, in this moment in time where we're just like full of fear and all of that, and all at home. And meanwhile, nature is just thriving and just going. It's like, yeah, we have a lot to learn, a lot to learn. We need to respark this curiosity, um, that has to be there, not just like, oh, it's an animal, oh, it's just a dog,
Mm.
but actually watching and understanding, how come my dog knows what to eat in the bush?
Why,
I
why
didn't know that.
so
What
smart?
kind of information does this dog have? Right? But we're out of touch. We're out of touch. And I
And
love it here. I love it here because we go into the bush and you get to see and understand. And sometimes we go with people who know, and it's like, oh, you can eat this, you can't eat this, this is a medicine, and this is, so it's like we have everything. We have a lot of things here, um, that we just still need to learn, and just be open to learning, and know that we're not going to learn it all, but understand that it's got a lot to teach us.
mm,
Um, and actually, I've been reading this book. You
oh,
gave it to me.
yes, I did. I
Yeah.
got a copy too. Yes, she's so great.
Yes. Oh my goodness, I love her so much. And I actually took a break from the book because so I took some moments to kind of read those and catch up on that, and just to kind of understand, from a science fiction point of view, which I love. I love science fiction so much. Um, you know, just reimagining. I think she put, the future. Like kind of breaking away, shaking ourselves off from the patterns that we've always had, because they
Right,
don't work.
right,
Because they don't work. Who can tell us that it's really working? It's not working. So, and why not change like nature?
right.
Why not change like nature? Yeah, the whales are migrating, because it's
Oh,
cold in the south. So it's for a purpose, and they're fine with that. They go all the way up to Tanzania, and then they come all the way back down. Um, just
mm,
nature calls, so we have to also kind of do the same. Um, and there was one, um, quote from Olivia Butler from one of her books that I want. It's just very short. Civilization is to groups what intelligence is to individuals,
oh yeah.
right? And I love that because, it's like, when we think about the problems of the world, we always think about, oh, it's too big, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's not, because you're seeing it every day and every minute. You're in it. You're part of it, right? We're all part of it. We're part of this destruction, or part of this civilization.
And the
We're part,
creation,
huh?
and the creation, like,
Creation, exactly. So we're part of it all, in every single way, in every moment of the day. So, and then again, a lot of compassion. We always do it, but compassion. We're learning and we're growing, and every day is different. And sometimes when I think about what I thought about a few years ago, I cringe, and I know I will cringe now, in a few years maybe. but it's
yeah.
okay, because it's the path, right? It's just the path and the process. and being opening, you know, and opening to learning from those who are most different as well, but learning from them in this open way. Um, yeah, so I really love that, you know, like from the small to the large. I think Gandhi also said something similar, you know, what you do, what your nation looks like is a bigger version of what how you behave on an individual level, you know. So I think that really also helps us to bring this huge issue into sort of bite sizes, you know, what we can what we can what we can influence, what we can do. And we're powerful beings, you know, so let's also stop looking at ourselves as
Right. Oh
little
my
things.
God. We have that's what I tell my students. I'm just like, you have so much power. You know, you have so much power and you can do whatever you want to do with that power. And just like to even conceive that we have power, for some of us, it's very difficult to conceive that we do, but we do. And I think that's something, and yet that, you know, I think about roots, you know, and how, you know, you um, supported these women and women from different tribes coming together to create, to be self-supporting, and in this really powerful way to create the change. You know, I think I've read that you had said something about, you know, that you were supposed to be creating change, but you were seeing the same people. You know, that you weren't able to see the kind of change you wanted to see, and so this is such a powerful thing that you did. And I also think about our conversation about community and about ancestors and about the descendants, and how we can really create that change, I believe, is in that. Would you share some of that story with us?
Sure. Hello. You cut out. You were cutting off a little bit. So the
Oh,
story about the roots.
yeah, the story about the roots, and yeah, the community, and yeah, bringing in, you know, it's something that's good for the descendants, and it's something that's good for the ancestors, and something that's good for
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good for the descendants because, you know, we're 11 years in almost. I started, you know, I traveled the country and it was amazing and beautiful seeing all these different, you know, traditions and culture, especially beadwork. So that's really what inspired me. I had to leave the UN because it was sucking my soul. I think it was hard. It was really getting in deep with people, but having to, you know, just write a report and send it and not really engage much. It was hard for me. Um, and I really felt like, you know, it's time to do something, not just report on what we already know, right? And so I left and I started the Roots Project, and it was just amazing. So the first thing I did was approach people from different communities who made beads. Um, but in South Sudan, we're very divided people. We have tribalism. We're very tribalistic. And I come from the Dinka tribe, which is the biggest tribe, which I would say is probably the not so popular tribe. We're the majority. So we have associated with the tribe. The presidents have all been from South Sudan, from the Dinka tribe, I mean. And so you have all of those things. But you know, I went to these women from different communities, and I went with some friends from those communities who introduced me to those women and things like that. And it was hard working. It was hard working because they didn't have trust. They didn't trust me.
Mm.
But you know, one of the things that was really important for me was just this consistency. So I just said, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. We would go, and you know, the women, there was a lot of insulting, but I didn't understand what they were saying. And so the people I took with me would get really annoyed and get up and walk around and all of that stuff. And I really took it that I don't understand what they're saying. And so therefore, they're not really saying anything to me. you know, like, I'm just going to ignore what you're saying is an insult, and I'm just going to focus on getting the work done and just building this friendship, right? This relationship. So I kept going, and it was difficult at times, you know, like, no, we're going to keep these beads. You have to give us more money and all of that stuff, you know. So, or the husbands would come and say, you are exploiting, and all of that, you know. So it was just a lot of going, a lot of going, a lot of going until, you know, more stuff was made, and then we paid, you know, paid the first beads, and then everyone started to realize, okay, this thing is true, it's for real somehow, you know. But it was still on a piece by piece, day by day basis. And so really that's how we started. And I went to many different communities, slowly, 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 again, facing the same thing. You know, I was not to be trusted. And we just kept going. We just kept going. Eventually, we had enough beads. We did a sale of those beads. We invited some of the women, and they came, and, you know, we sold the stuff together. Almost everything went, which really was amazing for them because they never worked, and then people loved what they made, and they never made it for commercial purposes. So it was kind of the beginning. And another friend was like, oh, now that you've started, you have to keep going, which I didn't really think about. But anyway, away we went. So we raised money. The the heart, you know, it really helped to kind of balance a lot of things. So, you know, to get rid of those sort of like, you know, holding the beads to ransom, pay more, I'm not giving them to you. So those things kind of fell away. Um, and, you know, rather than it being me versus the women, you know, it became all of us versus, not versus, but whoever came in, you know, because we also have, you know, we're working with women, grandmothers, mothers, girls. So a lot of people who are established already, but at the same time, people who've never really worked in an environment like that before. So, so it was difficult. And tribalism is really, really, really big. You know, like people rely on it. People ask you your name so that they can make a judgment about you. So that's how people relied on, you know, on things like that. You know, people would say to me, you're the only Dinka that I like. And I'd say, well, how many Dinkas do you really know?
Oh, good question. Good question.
Maybe that's why, you know, for example. Yeah. You know, people would say, oh, this person is really stupid. This Dinka person is really stupid, or this any other person is really stupid because they did this, you know, and it's like, okay, but do you think it's because he's stupid or because he's Dinka or from another tribe, you know? And it was really like just always
Powerful.
putting that question mark
Yes.
for our own belief systems, right? Shaking it always, always shaking our belief systems, you know, where there's this versus this, you know, add the rest of the 1,000 other options, you know, so people realize that it's not just this versus this. And so it's been a really amazing learning environment, and within community, you know, because not just from my tribe, but many tribes, we're all kind of, you know, some communities, you know, live together, work together, speak similar languages, others are not. But there's a lot of conflict between our different groups of tribes in South Sudan, different tribes. And it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful because it works, and it works to bring people together in an environment that does not support division and tribalism and all of that. Um, and just letting people sit together for years and years and years, you know, and not bringing up topics that, you know, we don't bring up tribalism for fun, for example, or politics, or anything like that.
Nothing that would inflame or ignite.
Yeah, but they come up alone. They come up alone but in a way that, people know who they're talking to, so it's like, it's been possible to have those conversations after not forcing them, I think in a traditional setting, in the humanitarian world or in the advocacy world, it would be to bring the women together and for them to discuss this and to discuss that and to discuss this. But we didn't take that approach. We just took sort of like, just be together.
Yes, let's just.
You all drink, you all have kids, you all love, you all dislike, you get sick, you get better, you lose, you gain, just
Yeah,
that we're people, first of all. And it really helped actually, because after when the war began in 2013, and we'd been functioning for some years at that point, for 5 years, when the war happened in some specific areas, it affected, people live in community, in their own communities in the city, like in New York, for example, you'd have like Chinatown, you'd have little Italy or whatever it is. It's kind of similar to that, right? Um, so you have different neighborhoods with different communities. And so when there was like actual conflict in a specific community, everybody got displaced there. So if you only know people from your own tribe, you're together in that same boat, right?
Yeah.
Women from other communities and other places, so they were able to go and stay with them rather than, literally being under trees or in, rushing to places and just finding shelter. They were able to go and stay with women from different communities who were in places that were not affected immediately by the conflict. And that's the resilience, right? That's the resilience that you're able to function. So it's like we need to kind of cast that net wide, but true, wide and true. Like to have real connections, real love, real sisterhood and community, and be able to come out of it. I just wanted to mention this one group, which were, the victims in Juba when the conflict happened. The government soldiers attacked one community, due to perceptions that they were going to, I don't know. So this community was targeted, and they all ran into the UN. Eventually, they all ran into the UN. There since 2013. And so as soon as that happened, within a few months, we thought it would be really nice if we could reconnect, because the women that we were working with from the Nuer tribe left the country. And so we thought we need to make a connection with the women in that camp from this one community, like they're suffering, And so we went there. My colleagues, I was not there. I sent my colleagues to go, and she went there once a week for months, and the women were not interested. And eventually they said, okay, just bring your beads. and and they started working, and within a month, of just, so we made a same model, basically: sit together, eat together, and be together, and then go home, and was kind of like a community leader. So she had the space, and the women came and they would cook and eat together and sit there. Even though they were from the same tribe, they weren't really bringing, and they suffered from the same thing. And so them coming together really created one day, one person would be having a really, really hard day, and then the other women would be there to support her. And then another day, another woman would be having a really hard day. And these are people who had lost, lots of relatives, kids, husbands, brothers, their homes, they were, you could see your home, but you can't go. And then feeling like the country doesn't, or you know, you're under attack by the government. It's quite a hard thing to just, you know, to accept, right? So it was difficult, but having this connection with them really helped. And for them even alone to sit together and thing, we get closed up when we get traumatized. We get closed up when we suffer something, even as a community. So this really kind of helped us become more determined, you know, to reach out and to just do that, you know. And it was great. And we even got a letter from one of the sons of the women, and said, "I see a change in my mother, you know, thank you." And so it's just beautiful things like that, you know. And the women themselves, they were like, "I had no idea that I would feel this way just by doing these beads with, you know, with the women." And I also went into the camp. I have to tell you, it was quite terrifying, because there was a lot of attacks against people from the Dinka community who went into the camp. So some people from the Nuer tribe were married to people from the Dinka tribe. Some of them got killed in the camp because of these tribal perceptions. And so I went in there. It was October 2014. I went almost without thinking,
Oh my.
without thinking, and I stayed in there for 3 hours, you know. And I really believe that the women, you know, protected me. I was there for 3 hours with them, sitting. You know, they went and they gathered all the women. They came, we sat, and it really kind of helped us to really get this bond and this trust,
Yes.
right? To build this trust.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's the importance of trust. It's like, you know, you know, there's a lot of people out there going about, you know, conspiracy theory. I know, you don't know, you don't get it, and all that stuff. But it's like, and if you're right, that this is a world that you can't trust and anything, what are you going to do? How are you
Yes.
going to work? How are you going to work it?
Great question. And yet I love that. Is yeah. What if you can't trust any? You know, I think that one of the things that kept surfacing in my mind as you were talking was vigilance. You know, and not only vigilance, but also like a devotion. But you know, the root word of vigilance is vigil.
Mm,
And I feel like you were holding like vigil at over these women and over their work and over their creations, and not only that, but also the preservation of something so important to the soul as the beads. The beads, they're essential to the spirit. And I know when I wear mine, I feel as though I'm in a protective circle. You know, I'm protected by the beads, you know. And so I feel that in order to to earn the trust, you know, and of course I think you and I have that that in common, that we're going to trust. We're going to say, yeah, you know, we want to love. We want to be in the love game, you know, like
exactly, right?
you know, but trust is earned. And and so I think that in that vigilance and in that holding a vigil, you know, that was your medicine, that they could come to you and say, oh, you've given us the medicine of vigilance, and how powerful that is in building trust.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I like that.
I really kept surfacing in my mind. And
Yeah.
beautiful. And so I have something I'd like to close with, um, but what else surfaces at this time, Anyeith, that you feel could really be useful for people at this time as they're learning to trust, and as they're learning how to be in community in such a strange time? And
Okay. First of all, always have compassion for yourself.
Mm. Mm.
Always have compassion for yourself, because it's like we are everybody, right? We're everyone.
Yes.
Everyone compassion for ourselves, because it's not easy times. You know, everything is bubbling up to the surface. But, you know, and while we're in this discomfort, we also have to remember that we need this transition. Things cannot stay the same. They're
Yes.
not staying the same, right? Things are not staying the same. They cannot stay the same. So, you know, feel the pain, but reduce the suffering with with acceptance and just love and question. You know, like we must question ourselves all the time. You know, no matter how right you think you are. You know, and I think I'm right, but you know, if someone is thinking something completely different, like what is that? You know, I've really been thinking, like, what is going on? Like, what is the end result of total division? Like, those who are dividing and are in war, like, what is the end? You know, and it could be whatever. It could be maybe they haven't thought about it, but at the same time, you know, we have everything and our knowledge to drive us. So I really think that people should always change minds, you know, like share your truth,
Yeah.
but share your truth properly and from your heart, so that it can shake the other person to think, wait a minute, you know, maybe I haven't thought about this,
Yeah.
you know, and just be like that, you know, because so many things are just not as they seem. And try to trust, you know, trust faster than you distrust,
Oh, yeah.
because we can't live in a world that where there's no trust. We can't live in a world where there's no trust. You know, there was one person who wrote to me on Facebook when we released our in 2014. It was only about 600 names at that time. So we released it with a statement that preempted all the distrust that was going to come. And it was great because, you know, we just thought, yeah, you know, we said, oh, we're going to do this. And people said, no, you shouldn't do this because, you know, people are going to get angry and start fighting again. We didn't believe that. Truth doesn't really do that,
Mm. Oh,
especially when you're opening, right? And then, you know, so people just said a lot of different things. We kind of like roped it all into a statement and said, you know, and first of all, we said, this is not a complete list. We're
mm.
starting. We need your help. This is a community project, and we cannot do this without you, because everybody knows who they've lost. I don't know who you've lost. I know you've lost, but tell me, you know. And then one person wrote on our Facebook post and said, you are just government stooges. This is not the complete list, and blah 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 blah. And take a deep breath and just take that core belief, you know, and acknowledge that our world wants us to disbelief. It wants us to distrust,
Mm.
you know, and we have to work towards trying to trust each other. You know, it's like if the first thing that comes to your mind is distrust, then what else is left, you know? And so, and then the next thing he sent me a Facebook friend request, and I was like, yay, you know? And it was great, you know? And he's a peacemaker, actually, I think. But you know, but things like that, like, you know, sometimes we just get tired and just say, oh, whatever, let them believe what they want to believe. But I don't think so. I mean, I think for me, it's important to, you know, every moment is teachable, but in a beautiful way, and not just like, oh, you need to be schooled, but
No.
If what you're saying to me is not true for me, I have to share with you from my heart what is true, you know, just how wide and expansive and beautiful our world is, because we have all these different perspectives, but at the core it's the same thing, you know, peace, love, security, balance, you know, even if we don't know it. Even if we don't know it, you know. So yeah, that's huh.
We can learn.
Oh, we can, and that's the beauty, right?
Yeah.
As long as we can keep learning. Yeah.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Well, I had this this piece I wanted to read. It's from Prayers for Healing, and it's edited by Maggie Oman, and with an introduction by the Dalai Lama, and it has such beautiful prayers. Anyeith, and I really thank you so much. I cherish you. I'm so happy. I love you. I cherish you. I'm so grateful that you're in my life and in the world. And I thank Tara.
Yeah. Yay, Char.
Thank you, Tara. We love you. And I'm sending a shout out to her. But yeah, so grateful. I love you. And I am so happy we got to have this conversation where I was like, oh, do you want to have because we were talking and we were like, we're having this great conversation. You know, maybe we should have this conversation. Oh, it's okay. When we were talking last week, it was like, well, we're having this great conversation. Maybe we should, other people could listen in on the conversation. And so I'm so happy and grateful. And
yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you.
so I will read this prayer. It's from August 9th, from page 183. And it says, we pray for the power to be gentle, the strength to be forgiving, the patience to be understanding, and the endurance to accept the consequences to holding to what we believe to be right. May we put our trust in the power of good to overcome evil and the power of love to overcome hatred. And we pray for the vision to see and the faith to believe in a world emancipated from violence, a new world where fear shall no longer lead humanity to commit injustice, nor selfishness, not selfishness make them bring suffering to others. Help us to devote our whole life and thought and energy to the task of making peace, praying always for the inspiration and the power to fulfill the destiny for which we were created, to fulfill the destiny for which we were created. And this was an adapted prayer from Week of Prayer for World Peace in 1978.
Wow.
New world where fear shall no longer lead men to commit injustice, nor selfishness make them bring suffering to others, but help us to devote our whole life and thought and energy to the task of making peace and praying always for the inspiration and power to fulfill the destiny for which we were created. Wow. Which is these things, compassion for ourselves, and that we need this change. Thank you, Anyeith. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much.